Okay, so we are going to start chapter 9, which is the first chapter on the muscular system. Now, this chapter is short and sweet, and it basically gives us a good overview of skeletal muscle. All right, so you know by now that skeletal muscles are not made of just cells, okay? Skeletal muscle has blood vessels that help supply the muscle cells with oxygen and glucose, two very important things we need for ATP in order for contraction to take place. They also remove waste, and there are nerves that help coordinate muscle contraction that are within this skeletal muscle. There's also some really important connective tissue that's associated with muscle, and it wraps around the muscle to allow it to do its job. So let's look at that first, just the connective tissue that's associated with the muscle. Each individual muscle cell, or you might hear this called a muscle fiber, muscle cell, muscle fiber, means the same thing, is surrounded by a thin connective tissue layer called the endomysium. Now, from now on, anytime you see mysium, you're going to refer that to muscle, and you know endo means inner. So the individual muscle cell is wrapped in a layer called endomysium. Now, when you have several muscle cells that are bundled together into what we call a fascicle, the fascicle is wrapped by a layer called perimysium. Okay, and some fascicles you might have in between 10 to anywhere from 10 to 100 muscle cells bundled together. But when you have them bundled together, it's called a fascicle. It's surrounded by perimysium. Then you have all the fascicles that make up the entire muscle. Those are enclosed in a fibrous connective tissue layer called epimysium. All right, so you have endomysium around the individual muscle fiber. You have perimysium around the fascicles, and then you have epimysium around all the fascicles that make up the muscle. Okay, then on the outside of that, you have interconnected tissues that taper down and connect to tendons or other connective tissues, and they attach the muscle to a bone or another structure to allow the muscle to have a leverage system so that they can actually move. Okay, so you guys know tendons attach muscles to bones. So here's a great picture of this. It's really straightforward. All right, so right here is your muscle fiber. Okay, so around this individual muscle fiber is the endomysium. Now right here where my mouse is pointing, you have several muscle fibers. They're bundled together called a fascicle. This layer right here is your perimysium. And then over here you've got a bunch of fascicles that are bundled together, which makes up the muscle. And outside of the muscle you have right here the epimysium. And then it also shows you the muscle fascia that connects to the tendon that's going to connect this to the bone. Okay, and this gives you a representative skeletal muscle, the brachialis, which is a major muscle in your arm, and it shows how it's connected by the tendon from muscle to the bone. Okay. All right, so let's look at the muscle shapes. Now, again, fascicles are bundles of muscle cells that have a very specific arrangement, both appearance and function of the whole skeletal muscle. Okay, their arrangement affects both the appearance and the function of the skeletal muscle. There are several different arrangements in the human body that we are going to look at, and the first one is called a parallel muscle. This is a strap-like muscle. It's evenly spaced fascicles. They're all running the same direction. The muscle and the tendon are the same width. Okay, some examples would be your sartorius, rectus abdominis, found in your abdominal area. Zygomaticus major is going to be, zygomatic bone. It's going to be in your cheek there. Okay, now for your exam, you need to know the definition, like what parallel means. Evenly spaced fascicles are run in the same direction. You also need to be able to cite examples. Okay. All right, the second one is called convergent. This is basically a triangular shaped muscle. It tapers down to a single tendon. Pectoralis major, temporalis are two great examples of a convergent muscle. All right, then you have your pennant group. Now, pennant is when the fascicles attach to a tendon at an angle, so they give kind of a feather-like appearance. Now, you have three variations. You have unipennant, bipennant, and multipennant. Unipennant is when the fascicles are only attached to one side of that tendon. Bipennant is when they're attached to both sides, and multipennant is when you have several regions of the fascicle that are joined at each section to form a single tendon. Okay, to me the best way to explain this is to look at the picture. Okay, so here is the unipennant. You can see those fascicles are in one direction, so they're all going in kind of that diagonal or that oblique fashion connecting to one side of the tendon. Now over here you have bipennant, and you have two directions. You have two different arrangements of fascicles, and they're all connecting to this one tendon. And then over here you've got multipennant, so you have several different oblique diagonal fascions going. Okay, and again it gives your examples. Flexor pollicis longus is in your hand, rectus femoris is a major muscle in your leg, and then the deltoid is that muscle that drapes over the shoulder. Okay. Alright, then you have sphincters, probably the easiest one. These are basically circular muscles. Their circular arrangement surrounds body openings, and they provide volunteer control over defecation and urination. So your external anal sphincter is an example. Also around your eyes is what allows your eyes to open and close, orbicularis oculi. You also have one around your mouth called the orbicularis oris as well. So sphincters, circular shape. Okay, then you have spiral. This is where muscles wrap around another structure such as a bone. Your supinator, which is in your arm, is an example of a spiral muscle. And then lastly we have the fusiform, and this is where the midsection or the belly of the muscle is thicker and the ends are tapered. Okay, so you have that fusiform shape. Your biceps brachii, your gastrocnemius are both great examples of fusiform shaped or fascicle arrangement of the muscle. Okay, naming muscles. Let's look at this for a second. It's been based on the muscle's appearance, size, or position. Okay, some of these muscles have maintained their historical names and they're unrelated, but most of them, there's basically 7 ways that muscles can be named, and you need to know these 7. The first one is location. Okay, using directional terms, of course in combination with a Greek or Latin word root. The second one's body region. All right, where the anatomical structure where they're attached, abdominis, oris. That one's usually a really easy muscles to remember where they are when they're named after their body region. They could be named after their action, perform whatever they do when they're contracted. Flexors, extensors, adductors, abductors, levators, all those are named after their action. They could also be named after their fiber orientation, rectus or oblique. You know, oblique was that diagonal shape. They could also be named for their shape. Deltoid, rhomboid, just basic shapes. Size, longus, brevis, or the head of origin. Okay, so triceps or biceps. So these are the 7 different ways that muscles can be named. So make sure that you know these. There's a table 9.1 in your textbook that looks like this. It gives the term and the meaning, and it also gives you an example of a muscle in the body. Okay, so this is definitely worth taking a good look at. A lot of these muscles are the ones that you're going to have to know for your lab test. Okay, all right, we will stop there for now. We'll finish up the chapter in the next video.